those are the things that, we think about. Like, man, are our baits perfect? Like, I know John Louis on the Sandman one year. I mean, and he's the godfather, dude. And we all learned from him. And I know one tournament he wasn't getting bit and he fucking dumped every single bait he had in his pen, dumped them all into the ocean and fucking went back to their dock and picked up all brand new baits. I mean, he's just a savage with the stuff. I mean, he keeps more bait than any other boat out there. I mean, when we think we have a lot of bait, we have 500 thread fins. And
how did it start out? Like, what was the origin story?
Too much alcohol.
Really? Okay.
Says if God wanted us to have fiberglass boats, he would have given us fiberglass trees.
It's for fishermen. It's not for taking the wife and the wife's friends.
I think that it's a really, really pretty boat.
And then there was a blur that went by and ended up in the cockpit, as far as if I can remember correctly.
What's up, everyone? We're back. State of Sport Fishing. I'm Nick Carullo, captain of the Showtime. I'm joined with me, Anthony Pino, captain of the Blood Money, and with Hooked Optics, and Chase Nearder on the Outnumbered. Today, we will be talking about how we prep for our respective seasons, live baiting versus trolling, and what it takes to get ready for our season. But before we start, we don't run ads. We don't promote in any way. So if you can just do us a solid and share it with a friend, well, we'd greatly appreciate it. Let's get started. Anthony, talk to us. How do we prep for dead baiting?
I mean, I was thinking just for the season, as up here in Ocean City, it's a lot of pretty much dredge fishing from July through September and even into October here. And it's pretty simple. I think the overall thinking on my boat or, boats around Ocean City and in the Mid-Atlantic is that you never know what the season's going to bring. But, say somebody or we happen upon an incredible bite, it's so unpredictable up here because there's so many big variables about how the water moves, where the Gulf Stream is and everything like that we'll feel like we need to kind of like be ready for any eventuality with the idea that, man, maybe one day we'll fucking land on the bite of all bites. Like I've been fortunate enough to be involved in some of those bites, and if you're not prepared to take care to capitalize on it, you're going to be, I feel like you'll regret not being prepared for it. So, I try to keep my guys, we try to do a lot of hook tying before the season so they don't have to do it. We're not on my boat. I'm not one of those boats that can, like, the people, like my bosses just can't be like, all right, if the fishing's good, we're just going to fish every fucking day until they leave, we're not like that. So I in my mind, I still prepare for that in hopes that we can do that. But that we're not one of those boats. So we're not one of those boats that, you have to have everything tied up and ready to go to fish for like a week straight or something like that. Even though, like I said, we do that just because, for the tournaments and stuff like that up here, you do fish a lot and the days are really, really fucking long. So it helps to be really, really, really prepped, tackle wise and mentality wise and stuff like that. So we do, we fish with the 7.0 Mustat circle hook on ballyhoo, on a swivel rig to a ballyhoo. So just a regular easy swivels. So your Miami boys, my favorite way to roll. So we tie up. I mandate 500 before the season, and if I feel like I like to have them ready by June. And if we go through, like, if we're running low kind of come early August, I'll make sure we tie another 100 to get back up to 500 in case that we do that. So we do, just like your typical circle hook snelled 5-6 foot of, 60-pound fluorocarbon on the 7.0 Eagle Call Mustat, crimped to a loop and a 25 foot header, which we already have made up as well. So 500 of those, 100 headers, last us pretty much the entire season. Have them. We package our hooks 10 hooks to a bag inside of a plastic bag, which I think is a really really important thing because circle hooks will literally rust out in your boat, like those 7.0 mustats. And even though they're inside and in a container or something like that, I feel like having that sealed plastic little sandwich bag is the way to go. And we catch a lot of tunas on up to 100 pounds or more on those 7.0 mustats. And if they're not perfectly brand new when they go out, you're going to end up breaking one and losing a fish maybe that you really want to catch, You always keep them in the bags, or do you ever put them on the yo-yo? I've always keep them in bags of sandwich bags and bags of 10. Yep. And if they go outside the door, they're basically useless. I'm fucking like very rarely do we reuse them unless we know the fishing's good and, something like that. I do not like broken hooks. And I think that it's an avoidable thing. And the hooks are, the cheap enough. The fluorocarbon is, I try to be wary about that and try not to bring them out unless I really need them because fluorocarbon is expensive. And I like to be aware, I just try to be careful with the money we spend. I had a boss when I first started fishing that I would cut. We'd start with a 6-foot leader, right? And then he would just make me, if we didn't use the leader, cut the hook off, throw it off, and retie a new hook on it just to save the fluoro. We're not quite there at that level, but just try to look out for the boss's wallet as best we can. Yeah.
What fluoro did you say you're using?
I like what do I use? 60-pound Andy. Andy's been pretty much my favorite fluoro. No reason. It's just very abrasive resistant, man. I think it's fucking, you can really pull on things with that stuff. And it's amazing if you have your knot right and everything like that, how much pressure you can actually put on that.
Yeah.
So, hey, let me ask you this. I seen something, you guys, I seen something and I tried it recently towards the end of our season. I started putting the O-ring right where on the hook and then snell in the hook and then put in the hook through the eye, kind of like
gives a little cushion.
Yeah, it gives it a little cushion. It really, like we tested it and it really, we straightened the hook every time. We never broke a snell before we straightened the hook. Do you do that, Chase, especially in the DR?
I do not.
I got you.
It was one of those things, like I saw it too. It was an In the Bite article that I saw it on. And I sat there, I thought about it. And for me, it was just, I'm usually breaking the fish off or, we're not really worrying too much about like trying to keep it on. It's not, for us, it's not kill fishing. Mm-hmm. Most of it's just release stuff. And I can honestly probably say I chafed off a handful of fish this year. Didn't really, when you're on the leader and you get that one back and it breaks in the crotch there, the snell, when it comes where it goes through the eye, it's kind of your commonplace when you're breaking off a white.
Yeah, it's always going to break there.
It always breaks right there. So if that does away with it, that's awesome. But for me, like, we, towards the end of the year when we started catching more doubles, triples, that kind of stuff. It was like, I don't know if I wanted to be sitting there running around with a cutter when I can take a double wrap.
Yeah.
Turn my head the other way and break.
One of you guys want to explain what that rig is for people that don't know?
I wish I had a hook here. It's basically what I saw was you slide like a rubber grommet O-ring that we use for rigging baits all the way down to the eye, tie your snell, and then put it through the eye of the hook. And basically the main failure point in any snell that you're ever going to use when you snell it the way we found that circle hooks are most effective is basically where that line goes through the eye of the hook. And I feel like the idea, I think it was the guys on the Haruko maybe that figured it out. I think they said in the article.
Yeah, that was who I saw did it.
And then it just gives a little bit, some hooks, depending on what style you use, have a pretty aggressive crotch there at the bottom of the eye of the hook, and I think could create a premature failure point. And I think I think we'll be doing it for our kill tournaments next year. If we're getting like 50 bite, I might just do it. If you got the time to do it before leading up to the tournament or to the season, then we might just do it all together. But for the tournaments, definitely, I feel like it gives us just a little bit more to pull on because the snell through the eye of the hook is not what I would consider 100% knot, which is kind of And I like 100%, like being able to pull all the way to 60 pounds on it, but it ain't going to help you not chase something off, but it does help you really pull on the fish a little bit more, especially with the tunas up here in the mid-Atlantic sometimes that's the only thing we catch when we're marlin fishing. So
what about the guys that, oh, go ahead, Chase.
One thing I started doing that, might help you out, Anthony, is I don't know if you ever seen it. I do 10 packs of hooks in a bag, but I put aluminum foil around my hooks.
We do that as well. Yep. Kind of keeps them organized.
So I found that, actually if you sat one, like we ran into a couple of days where you're getting towards 6 o'clock, got a couple hooks left in the kill box. And I'm like, man, I don't want to get a whole new pack out. But you bring one out and pull it out. Normally I'd just throw that pack away because I'd be like, oh, it's done now. It's outside. It's seen salt water.
Yeah.
Or salt air. But I found that aluminum foil, keeps them for an extra day. You know what I mean? Just 'cause it starts eating the aluminum foil before it starts eating the hook.
I gotcha.
Kite fishing, usually yo-yos and all that kind of stuff. That's all new to me. I've done some kite fishing, but not a lot. So Nick, you're going to have to lead the way.
How do you do you guys have a certain number of hooks that you guys start out with, Nick? Cause I mean, like Ocean City, I feel like sometimes those incredible bites, you can't always predict. They just kind of happen in South Florida sometimes, and you got to have your shit ready to rock,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, typically when we're going through a shit ton of leaders, it's typically, when you do have a decent sail bite, but it's all the fun critters. Fish. Yeah. The critters, the kingfish, bonitas, mahis. I mean, sometimes, in an hour, 2 hours, you could go through 50 liters, with nothing. You're like, gosh, damn, what the fuck? But it's just a part of it. And for us, and we put them on the yo-yo and we basically, you strip them right off super quick, snap it on a rod. And I mean, it's just, we're putting on leaders super fast. Sometimes you put a spread out and your whole entire spread gets completely crushed by 6 kings. Yeah. So all your shit's flying in the air. We got to rip everything in and just slap, as fast as you can. So for us, they're pretty effective, and we're not necessarily, like you said too, after a day of fishing, pretty much the leaders on that yo-yo are, they would probably go towards a fun fishing day.
Mm-hmm. I got you. What do you, what knot do you guys, do you crimp the top of your leader? You just tie a perfection loop to go to the swivel?
Perfection loop. And then we use a knot on the hook that leaves a little loop end. I wouldn't say it's called a precision. I mean, some
live bait knot or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, a tackle guy in a store down here, I think showed it to a couple of us, quite some time ago. And we kind of just used it ever since. And it just keeps this tiny little loop, just so that hook has a little bit of movement,
So you don't snell your hooks?
Not live baiting.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
I mean, there are a couple of guys that do, but we don't.
I've seen a lot of guys that started snelling hooks, but not going through the eye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was actually just going to ask that.
And that's last year, that's how we did a couple days on the Showtime with the exclamation point. We did a couple days of kite fishing where I tied them like that. And, it was the first time we ever kite fished on that boat. And how I threw a spread out there. I was like, all right, guys, this is how it's going to go. And right as I'm trying to, talk to him about how things are going to go, raise a triple. And my dumb self, I forgot to loosen the clips out of the bag on my kite setup, and there's a sailfish. There's a sailfish hanging from the long. I was like, "Holy shit, Crank! Drop your rod tip!" Go over there trying to shake it, do everything, and pop out and pull them off. I was like, "Oops, my bad, guys."
So, Nick, how many yo-yos do you have for a typical day? And how many hooks do you put on a yo-yo?
Honestly, until they can't, there's, when we wrap them, you wrap it, and, our leaders can't be more than 15 feet. They're usually about 14 and a half, 14, whatever. So when we wrap them, you got to make them fall, obviously, not on top of each other, which sometimes can be hard. So as you're wrapping them, sometimes you pull some tighter than other ones.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. Typically a yo-yo will have, 40 hooks on it.
I got you.
And then have, 3 or 4 ready to go. You know, keep them in a big Ziploc and like a 2-gallon Ziploc down, you know, in the console, and then pull them out as we need them.
Yeah, I got you. And then go ahead, Chase.
I like to live like a season ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a good.
When we're traveling, like this year, I didn't have as much time to get ready, you know, to go to the DR as I wanted, or I would have liked, you know, with switching to the new boat and stuff. So I went down there with like 400 and some hooks tied, which usually my magic number is 500. I'm like you, Anthony, where I like to have that 500 ready to go. But we ended up staying an extra month than we expected. And I got, you know, I'm looking at it. I'm like, man, there's only 140 hooks in here. What if fishing's really good? So I end up tying another 150 for the last moon just in case. And, you know, we ate through a lot of them. So it ended up working out. But we do pretty much everything the same way for deadbait fishing. 10 packs. I do the aluminum foil on the hook. 10 packs of them, 6 foot, 23.5 foot header. I like to have at least 3 or 4 yo-yos full of headers before I go anywhere. But like, you know, our down days in the DR, I started tying all my sailfish stuff.
Yeah.
So I got, you know, 2 spools of headers for trolling, and then 2 spools of, you know, kite leaders, and then, you know, probably 157 O's tied on whatever 50 pound Andy, whatever I'm gonna pull when I'm trolling.
Gotcha.
I just think it's easier if I'm ahead. I feel like I'm not sitting there tying hooks at night. If I don't want, I hate tying hooks at night.
Oh no, like that's like, I feel like that's almost, if for some reason I had a mate that would fucking drive me up the wall, dude. It's like you get in a once in a lifetime bite and you'd be like, you haven't been ready for this. Like you haven't been thinking about this day for years, you know, like,
Yeah.
I would hate, you know, cause it never goes right. So like, you're never going to catch it. You're never going to have an epic day of fishing where you don't have to respool a couple reels or something like that. So you have to control what you could control when you have the downtime, you know? And I think that's so important, is to just maintain that sort of readiness and control what you can control, because, you know, we live in a very fluid world out there in the ocean. And, you know, you might be hauling the boat, replacing props, and you can't be tying hooks when that, like, you know, I always think like during the White Marlin Open on the first day, we're going to go out there wall full of propeller, and we're going to need to put a new set of propellers on, you know, like that's, and you know, sometimes the mate's got to be a part of that. And if he's got to tie hooks, that's unacceptable, you know?
Yeah. We had it the other day, you know, where it was one of those days where I was like, oh, this is going to be our magic banner day. We had caught 6. We were 6 for 7 by 9:30 in the morning. And I was like, you know, I actually climbed upstairs and I looked at Cap. I was like, this is going to be it. You know, this is our banner day. If it holds out like this, we're going to have a day, you know. We ended up catching 10 in a white that day, but
that's incredible still, but you definitely fucked up the good juju.
Yeah.
I jinxed it right there at 9:30.
Spoke a little too early.
But, you know, on that day, I think before 9:30, we respooled 2 rods, caught one, hooked and caught one going in reverse on another fish. You know, just everything that could have been. It was like that day where everything was started out wild. And I was like, man, you know, this is going to be it. But it was nice because I was sitting there. I was like, all right, go grab another, you know, to Louie. I was like, Louie, go grab another bag of hooks. You know, didn't have to worry about any of that. Grab me the spool of 30 pound. Let's re-spool this rod. You know, just having everything there and ready, you know, just pop a spool of headers out. Cause God, we went through headers like you wouldn't believe, you know, just trying to break fish off and go get another one. Cause we didn't know, like they had been the fish were very surgy. You get like, you know, an hour and a half a day where it was like, you know, this is your time to get them. And then it'd go quiet for 5 hours, and then you'd have another hour and a half, and then you'd pretty much be done for the day.
Yeah.
So if you got stuck on one fish for like an hour, you know, you're like, shit, I just ate up all that time where they're flurrying. You know, but I like being a season ahead is the way I like to live. I've been there. I had a time crunch one time where like I just started with a boat and we started fishing like right after. And I was commuting to the boat, tying hooks at night. So that way I wanted to keep 200 on the boat at all times in case we had something crazy happen. Mm-hmm. So like if we went to 50 that day, I go home and tie 50 more hooks. And like after that, I was like, yeah, this will never fly. Like I gotta be set up. I just give me a week. You know what I mean? If you give me a week, I can build enough tackle for 2 seasons. But I don't know. I like to live a season ahead. Some guys are like, I just focus on what I'm focused on right now.
I feel like, I mean, if the owners give you the budget to do that, I think, and you have the opportunity and the time to do it and you don't have other stuff going on the boat, I think it's your job to do that, and I think you gotta take that seriously. And now if the owner says, every program is different, and if for some reason they're like, would you just stop buying fucking fluorocarbon? Then you got to deal with it as you can. But I think it's in our job description to maintain that readiness as well as we can with the budget and the resources that you're allowed. So
how many ballyhoos you rigging for a day of fishing in a tournament up there?
I pretty much rig 60 dink baits every day when we go fishing, unless even during the tournaments, unless I foresee, it coming really, really, if I know it's going to be like 30 bites or more and critters mixed in, then I'll rig more. But we do 60 a day, but before the season, I have the mates rig a couple packs that we refreeze that are rigged up, all prepped and rigged up, ready to rock. So in case we run out of baits during a tournament, and those are specifically for the tournaments, not hangovers that were rigged up in a cooler all day. These are rigged up and dried off and put back in the bag, for the White Marlin Open, the Mid-Atlantic, and a couple of the other tournaments that we have that we're like completely set for. They're not just like regular hangovers. They're like actually like meant to be hangovers for in case we run out, because I don't like rigging a whole bunch. That's another thing that I think, rigging baits during a fishing day is kind of like a no for me too. I really don't like it. So if we can just pull out, if I can get in my bridge freezer and throw down a couple packs of a dozen, we could pull them out as we need them. Say we get down to when we get down to about 20 baits, depending on how the fishing is, I'll get a shout, be like, hey man, can you hand down, another 2 dozen or something like that? But 60 seems to do pretty well, but unless the critters are bad or something like that, which can happen here. 60 dink baits and 3. I normally go with three big blue marlin pitch baits. Like we fish a lure a lot, so it's just basically one pitch bait that we're going to throw out there. So 64 baits basically.
Quick break, everyone. We usually don't run ads, but considering it is holiday season, we'll be running sales up to 50% off. So please check out our website at billfishgear.com and also check out our co-host website, hookedoptics.com. Thanks for listening.
Not like the dead bait stuff here in Stewart, dead bait stuff here in Stewart, we're fighting over fresh baits to begin with, and then rigging, anywhere from 100 to 150 for the day. Just because bonitas get so thick. I've never had that Ocean City day where I've been like, oh man, the critters got, I had days where it was like, when I only fished Ocean City, where I was like, oh man, I got eaten up today by some mahis and, a couple little tunas and stuff like that. But it wasn't until I did the dead bait stuff here in Stewart that I was like, oh man, this is what critter fishing is like.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Catch four sailfish and go through 100 baits in a day. You're like, man, that was the awakening for me. But for the most part, like if we're gonna do the dead bait stuff up here, which we have on our schedule right now, we're gonna do the Gold Cup. We'll dead bait fish that, and that might be the only tournament we do that I know of. But for that, I'll probably go into every day with at least 100 sitting there, fresh baits. But I like to live a day ahead in that too. Like if we're gonna for 3 days, I'll rig 200 the first day, so that way I only have 100 rig, for the next 2 days or whatever. Or the way it used to be, we used to have fresh baits delivered every night to the boat for the most part when I was fishing with John. And that was pretty consistent, but that's rigging on a whole nother level in my opinion. But I think it like 60 is our golden rule. Like if we were just going to go fun fishing for a day out of Stewart, I'd probably do 6 or 7 pack of a dozen. That's a lot.
How many macks were you rigging down in DR for the day?
I didn't rig any mackerels.
You had them all done?
We, I took a couple mackerels for teasers, but I didn't pitch mackerels.
No, that's what I'm saying for teaser baits.
Oh, down there, I'd rig like 5 or 6 for a day. Once we started to get we actually got away from pulling teasers with, we got away from pulling chains. We pulled one chain with usually a mackerel or if it was grassy, we'd pull a ballyhoo with like just a normal islander on it, something small. But for the most part, we started pulling a thing that we named Dum Dum on our right bridge teaser, and that was the way to go. We stumbled into it on a video that we saw, and I made one, and then we saw 14 fish to it in a day. And we were like, hell yeah, don't have to rig mackerels anymore.
What was that basically just a lure with nothing on it, like being pulled behind it, Chase?
So it was a lure. This is going to sound terrible, but I don't know how many feet it was set up. It was just the width of my cockpit. It was a Bobby Brown on a 3-foot dropper in front, straight from a swivel. Bobby Brown in front, and then some sort of prowler in the back, whether it was a St. Thomas prowler or an Oz prowler. We went with the smaller one, the St. Thomas, and it was honestly pretty stupid. We named it Dum Dum because there was points where like you'd have a fish trying to eat the Bobby Brown in front, you'd have a fish trying to eat the prowler in the back, raise a double to it. It was weird. But them things liked it down there. Don't know why. But that got away from rigging a bunch of stuff. Didn't have to rig half of it. But right now you're starting to get the critters more. So we started going through more teaser baits. Like early in the year, when we first got there, July and August, we really didn't go through teaser baits that much. You could pull one mackerel for half a day. It wasn't until the barracudas got a little thicker and the wahoos got in there pretty thick there at the end of the year that we started going through teaser bait. But for the most part, for us, it was just 60 hook baits. We didn't pull any flat lines. We actually started pulling a center flat for the last moon that was between our short rigger teasers, so it was way back there. So you still pitch everything, and then like one of the mates, the bosses would pitch, and then one of the mates would pop that flat line and just hold it where it was, because if you miss that pitch, if you miss on that pitch, it falls right into that center flat sitting in the clean water. And you just that was your cleanup shot, normally get a going away bite out of them. And that worked really well for us. But for the most part, when you're only pulling long riggers and pitching stuff, you don't go through baits.
Yeah.
What about you, Nick?
Got solid though in there.
It was fun. We had a blast.
How about you, Nick? And I know, how you live baiting in Miami, it's a different world there, dude, with the prep that you guys got to do. You catching your own bait, buying it. What's the process there? What's the thinking?
Yeah. Catching all our white bait, that's our thread fins and sardines. So that, I need 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks out from a tournament, we're penning up baits, and then once they start eating, you're pretty much feeding them every single day, up to the tournament. So it's a lot of work feeding them and taking out the dead ones, taking out the ones with rashes on them, because they could we call it give the sickness to the other baits. And so keeping the bait pen clean, so you're getting good water flow, and it's a lot of work. Some days you show up to the boat and your whole 200 beautiful baits you just spent all day catching are all dead. You're like, what the fuck? Well, let's go do that again.
Yeah.
It's from who knows, sometimes your neighbor pours bleach in the water that you don't know about, or if your well wasn't pressurized all day, they got beat up, and there's a lot of factors, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah. How many and then you guys will buy the goggle eyes and stuff like that? Or
some guys are, I'd say probably the fleet. I'd say like a lot of guys used to all catch their own. And I think now, a lot of the bait, there's a lot more bait guys now, especially gog guys. And And I think there's some good guys now that are taking care of the baits properly. So, you know, I think a lot of the boats now are buying goggle eye. But you still have guys catching their own. And then some guys like pinning the goggle eyes up for a while. I personally, I don't. I like fresh gogs. Like I like them. Like I want to catch them the night before the tournament and use them like fresh like that. Whereas the white baits we're pinning up, like I said, you know, for a while.
Do you have to basically with the white bait, do you have to like, after you catch them, it stresses them out, you basically got to rebuild them, you know, like, is that part of it?
Yeah. I mean, that's part of like the whole feeding them, you know, like, you know, they get little line marks, you know, from our sabiki rigs, you know, so they get like little, we call it line burn on them, and, you know, maybe the hook hit them, whatever, or when you're dipping them out of the pen, you're out of the live well into the pen, you know, you're dipping them one by one, because their scales are, you know, you cause little bruises to the scales in a couple of weeks, they all start turning red, and those baits are useless, you know.
I got you.
So, but yeah, once you're feeding them, they build up, they're getting, you know, whatever protein and stuff in that food, and their scales get really hard. And like by the tournament time, those thread fins and sardines, you know, their noses are now like super hard. Sometimes they almost have like elephants, like these like clear gels growing on their nose. It's from like, you know, where you hooked them. So they become hardy baits, you know, they could become really good baits.
Gotcha. It's quite the science.
Do you guys do like the different foods for like different food for time of the year and stuff like that?
No, not for time. I mean, our white bait gets pretty much the same thing year round. You know, we give them like a kind of just like a fish flake that you almost like you buy in a fish store, but we buy it like kind of commercial grade in like big 5-gallon buckets and stuff. But some guys are giving them like the frozen brine shrimp, krill, things like that. So
gotcha.
Everyone has their own thing. Some guys catch the bonita and chop off the bonita. That's you know, it's great too. A little more work, but
yeah, it's a science. That's for sure.
I've heard people are already like got their baits already starting to pen them up now. I'm like, man.
Oh yeah.
I don't even think about it until like the week before, and then I start calling my bait guys.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, if you're not doing it like super hardcore, like a lot of the, you know, the South Florida guys, you know, they're not penning them up like how we are, you know, months out, you know, and it's crazy. Last year we had baits pinned up for like, I want to say over 2 months that were like, not like we didn't want to use them, but we just never actually dug into a couple pens that we had of big thread fins and ended up using later in the year. Then they ended up being incredible baits.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you pin them up that long, by the time you use them, you know, you fed them $300 of flake.
You're emotionally attached to those ones already. They're basically pets.
Oh, they are. It's sad sometimes to use them. You're like, oh, those are good guys, you know?
What, I mean, obviously with the South Florida kite fishing scene, dude, like explain to me what the difference, like if you had a good bait on and a bad bait on a certain kite, and you had a sailfish literally just fucking swim by the shitty bait to go to the better bait. Like, is it that like, I just find it like
it can be. Absolutely. I mean, there are days when honestly, you know, you could pretty much say it doesn't matter, you know, what you had out there. You could have a fucking grunt out there, you know, for all they care. But, you know, I definitely think there are days when, I mean, they'll come up to that bait, they'll black out on it. You know, you think he's going to eat it, and then he keeps swimming, and maybe you get him on, you know, the left side, you know, pick them up on another better bait, or like when you're fishing in a pack of boats, you know, and, you know, you're fishing in a pack of 20 boats and three boats are catch them and everyone's not, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not, you know, it's hard to say what it is exactly, but those are the things that, you know, we think about, like, man, are our baits perfect? You know, like I know John Louis on the Sandman one year. I mean, and he's the godfather, dude. And we all learned from him. And I know one tournament he wasn't getting bit, and he fucking dumped every single bait he had in his pen, dumped them all into the ocean, and fucking went back to their dock and picked up all brand new baits. I mean, he's just a savage with the stuff. I mean, he keeps more bait than any other boat out there. I mean, when we think we have a lot of bait, you know, we have 500 thread fins and, you know, 300, 200 sardines and 200 gogs. John Louis has 1,500 thread fin, 600 sardines, and 400 gogs. You know, it's just, he's just a different mentality, you know?
We got you. I guess it gives you, I mean, obviously you got to have confidence in what you're doing. So at least if you know you have good bait and you're not getting bit, you can just look at the captain and be like, dude, it's your fucking fault. Like,
yeah. I mean, that's why you want to eliminate that question, you know,
Yeah.
like if you have perfect bait, then it's like, all right, well, it's not the bait.
Yeah.
But when you have shitty bait, you're like, oh, well, you blame it on the bait, you know?
Yeah. So I find that really interesting. And I mean, and I guess it gives you, the more bait you have, the quicker you can discard bait too if you're not feeling it. Like, I mean, I'm sure, you know, like you put one out there and you're just like, that one ain't doing it. You just
absolutely.
Switch it
sometimes
out,
sometimes you put a whole spread out and you look at it and your baits just that they don't look right, you know. You're like, fucking rip it in, put a whole fresh side out, you know.
Yeah, I got you.
Or if you're fishing for 45 minutes and you're not getting bit, even though your baits look great, just like, hey guys, bring them in. Like, I'm not going to move because I like where we're at, but let's just get a fresh spread out there, you know.
I got you. Now, I mean, do you tailor your bait? Like, say you're fishing up towards Palm Beach or something like that for Operation Sailfish is out of there, right?
Yeah.
So say you're going up there. Do you fish different baits up there than you would down in Miami, or is it all kind of all we do the same stuff?
I mean, we tend to have obviously the same bait, but yeah, I do think there are places, from Palm Beach and even further north and then all the way down further south. I do think for whatever reason, as those sailfish pass down, they tend to kind of maybe focus in on different baits. Absolutely.
Gotcha. Interesting.
In Palm Beach, they tend to, focus on bigger baits, goggle eyes, even runners. And then kind of the further south they go, they definitely tend to kind of lean towards white bait. And then,
gotcha.
And even in the Keys, a lot of the Keys guys are using pilchards and obviously like Keys guys are definitely have, they always have 50 hook ballyhoo in their pen,
Mm-hmm.
So,
gotcha.
I really want to do that spray fishing.
Yeah, we did that today, man. It was badass today, man. It's awesome, man.
How many did you catch today, Nick?
4 for 7, probably saw a dozen.
I got you. What kind of time period is that in? Like, is that all day, or obviously not all day because it's fucking 5:30,
Yeah,
so.
it's earlier in the year, and then it's kind of, I want to say it's all on the tide, but and I've been trying to figure out what tide it seems to be better on, but I can't really tell you what I think is better because the last 2 days we did it, we had good fishing both days and they were like completely opposite tides, but it does seem to be a morning thing, I think, but
yeah.
It happens in the afternoon too, so it's hard to say.
I got you. So, all right. So moving forward, we talked about bait a little bit, our hook tackle, like for your kites, Nick, you got an extra kite reel ready to rock in case, a storm comes through, and don't they just like burn off? Like if you get a lightning storm or something?
Yeah. They just disintegrate.
Wild. Yeah.
They just literally disappear. Like they were never there. It's pretty wild.
So do you have do you put your kite, like your different swivels and stuff on a yo-yo or a spool that you could just rip it off, or do you just have another reel altogether that you just break out?
Yeah, both. Have one, usually you have multiple kite rigs, on some yo-yos, but also usually we'll have, especially, the hardcore teams, they probably have 4 hook or electric reels, ready to go, like in case they break them off, or like on days when kind of have variable wind. And, some days you're fishing and it's blowing 25 knots in the morning. And then by 1 o'clock, you go to helium, no wind at all. So you have to completely change gears going from, heavy braid to, super light 50 or 40 pound braid to keep your spread alive,
Gotcha. But, how about you chasing the DR? Like what kind of dredges were you pulling? Would you have, 1 or 2 made up ready to pull out of the box in case you lost a dredge? Your captain runs over a fad, gets the dredge tangled up in there. So that sort of stuff.
Thank God we didn't have it running over any fads happen. We did lose a dredge, and normally, so what I did was I had a firetail dredge and I had a mud flap dredge, single tiers with a cutback behind it. Normally it was so grassy, I'd say the first 3 moons that we fished, I maybe out of fishing 10 days, I pulled a dredge for 2 hours.
Wow, gotcha.
The other side, I had, whatever was on that side. My right side had a dredge on it, and then my left side, I had a bowling pin chain.
The bowling pins work good because they could shake the grass off, don't they?
Oh yeah, super quick. So for the most part, like if we were fishing in the grass, it'd be like, hey man, go ahead and hang the dredges. We spent most of our time with the bowling pin chain and the dredges hanging. The October moon, it got nice enough that we could pull dredges. So I pulled a mud flap and usually with some sort of color, like a purple head or something like that. And then on the other side, I pulled the bowling pin chain again, or like sometimes swapped it out for something random, like a big lure or something, just to try shit.
I gotcha.
But when I went down there, I ordered, I think 20 some dredge bars and some other stuff. And then when I was sitting in Nassau, I just crimped them all, and all you got to do is slap whatever on.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Put whatever on it and it's good to go. But yeah, for the most part, we kept it super simple. If we even pulled a dredge, we were happy. I think we saw 2 or 3 fish to the dredge in a day one time, and I was like, man, what if we had that out there all season?
Yeah, I was wondering, the fishing, you guys are pretty consistent, and I was like wondering, how much the dredge is playing into it. Like when you're catching so many fish in the grass, and then why would you even
completely honest with you? I don't think it mattered.
Yeah,
like I get it, it's dredge fishing. Everyone's like, oh, you got to have a dredge out there. First 3 moons, hell, I didn't even pull a dredge bar, and we did just fine. The only difference I saw when we actually had a dredge out there is we'd see a couple lazier fish to a bridge teaser that we were like, or to a cockpit teaser.
That motherfucker's been down there for 10 minutes, dude.
I wonder how long he was in the dredge chilling.
I had blue marlins this year follow us around for I'd mark them on the sonar. I'd get them on the bottom machine, and I'd start tilting up, right? And I'd tilt up. One day I took Raul's people fishing, Nick, and I'm tilting up on the sonar, and this fucking dot he was out to the back left corner of the wake, and everywhere I turned, he would just stay there, right? Like outside the wake. And it's like, what the fuck? And then for 5 minutes, I was like, fuck is that? And I kept on turning, and I could never get it to where I could approach it again. And eventually the fucking thing just, I finally turned one certain direction, and he came across to the other side of the tee and just destroyed a teaser. It was like a 600 pounder. And I was like, man, that thing's been back there for Raul was up there with me. I was like, man, that thing's been back there for fucking 5-10 minutes. And I've had a couple of them where I'm like, oh man, he's back there. Just get ready. Just hold that pitch bait out there. It's pretty wild. And then they'll reel the pitch bait back in and they'll lose faith in what I'm telling them. And then as soon as they do that, the teaser gets crushed, but they fucking follow you around for a while on the dredge. Yeah. Because I feel like the blues, they sit down below, even further below the dredge than say a white or a sail. I feel like they're down there looking at the spread, and I think they're just following the boat, Yeah.
It was weird. It was the first day I really started pulling that dredge. I was standing there, and I had Cap was like, hey, I marked one, mark a double at 150, and I'm standing there with my hand on the dredge reel, waiting. I was like, all right, he's coming to the teaser. I know he's going to 150. That one almost always plays. And I'm sitting there with my hand on it. And I can feel the dredge getting knocked.
Getting yanked on. Yeah.
But it's 6:15 in the morning, and I'm doing one of those things where I'm like, man, what the fuck was that? So I start inching the dredge up, and all of a sudden piles on a flat line. On the center flat line. I was like, that son of a bitch was sitting in my dredge whacking that thing. Yeah. And then you look at it, and the front, it was actually weird, is the front arm was bent. Front arm on the dredge, one of the front arms was bent, and then the mud flap was all chafed. And I was like, oh man, he's in there. He had a hold of that thing. But we did end up that same day seeing one in the dredge, all lit up, saw him there and got it away from him, got him on a pitch. But I don't know. I can't honestly say that I think it makes a huge difference. I think I've always kind of been one of those people that if you drive over them and they want to eat, they're going to eat, so, but the day that we caught 11, I think we marked, 70 or 80 fish, see 20 some. Yeah. So it's I don't know if we had a dredge out, if we didn't have the dredge out there, would have made a difference. I don't know. It didn't, we saw 25 in a day without a dredge, and we saw 25 in a day with a dredge. Yeah. So I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if anybody ever will. I like having a dredge there. It just makes me feel like I'm doing more. Yeah. So I think that's
what were you going to say, Nick?
I don't remember now. I think I was actually saying when you're saying with the blue marlins coming up, I was saying, you may have seen it because I sent it to Bill, that we had a dredge cam in our Squid Nation, red Squid Nation dredge that Raul actually put me on, that I guess maybe you put him on, and then he relayed the message to me, but we had one you could see him just come straight from the depths, just slowly inching his way up and came like, right into it. It was pretty sick. Pretty cool video.
Pretty bad. I don't think I did see it. You have to send it to me. It's pretty badass. Well, I don't, for whatever reason, I don't get to fish as much in the off season. I get stuck here and I'm still ate up with it. So like if I'm stuck here or traveling or something like that, I'll be like, I'll look at those dredge videos, man. And I find it very interesting. I think you can get a lot from those things, about what goes on behind the boat when you mark a fish, and you haven't seen a fish a bunch or seen a fish immediately, is he back there? He's back there more often than not, and I think we raise a lot more that we never see, so yeah.
We had, when I was fishing Costa Rica, we put a dredge cam out on a fun fishing day just for, shits and gigs. And, we didn't get to review it till we got to the dock. And I was like, hey guys, at some point we had a black marlin on the left teaser and none of us knew, he's just laying down underneath it. And I'm like, man, that's pretty cool. You get to see it clear as day here, but
yeah.
We never called that fish out, but like the way the boys, I don't know who it is, but one of the guys in Kona right now, he has that, live stream camera going in.
Brian Tooney on the snafu. I've seen it.
That's
pretty badass
setup. Like if you can sit there and watch your sonar and your and what's under the boat all at one time from inside the boat, that's pretty cool.
Is that hardwired or that's like Bluetooth or something?
I don't know, Nick, but I know he's got it set up. I think it might be hardwired because he pulls it like on he pulls it as not in a dredge or anything. He just basically pulls it on a weight, basically.
Yeah.
So, it's pretty cool though. Like, and that's another great example of what you can learn. Those blues over there definitely follow the boat a lot deeper than you would expect him. Like when you see a fish back there, you don't assume that he's been there for fucking 10 minutes. But I think there's a lot of times when he's there, maybe not 10 minutes, but for a while before that, So,
absolutely.
I mean, John Louie on the Sandman, he always has some good ones, that give a good look into like the DR fish. What the smaller blue marlin's doing. But like, I'm not gonna lie, like John Louie's the one who I got the idea for the Dum Dum teaser.
I've seen that on the one of their most recent videos where Sandra's waving at the fucking fish before she gets it.
Yeah.
And it was cool as shit, dude. We switched to that, and can't speak highly enough of John Louie. Like I walked down there and I was like, hey, like, trying to figure out, because there was a couple people that were pulling them, a couple people that weren't. And I was like, hey, like, I saw this in one of your videos. I was thinking about making one. Like, how'd you guys do it? And he's like, I don't really know. We just set up with a big one in the front, a little one in the back. That's how we did it. And I was like, man, I really appreciate it, but it ended up working for us. But those fish, like those little blue marlins, they'll get up in your dredge. From like watching their videos, they'll get up in your dredge and then they kind of sit back and they're just looking, but I don't know. I think there's times where you can have a dredge and times where you don't need it.
Yeah.
Simple as that. If you're on the moon, the way I look at it, when you're fishing that close to the moon, I don't think it makes a difference. I think they're coming up either way. But like that Kona stuff, that was really cool. I watched almost every one of that he posted because I think it's cool. Like they come straight up and down. Like
they come out of nowhere. Yes.
Yeah. It's like literally out of nowhere. You're like, man, that's cool as shit.
Yeah. And DR, I've seen where, I'm sure you saw it too, where you mark them straight up and down. You're like, oh shit.
That one's coming. We called them streakers, where like, you'd mark half the boomerang and then it'd be a streak straight up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, all right, that one's coming.
You can see when they fucking decide to come. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. That one's coming to something,
Yeah.
But normally like the way we looked at it, anything above 200 feet. So like you got them on the sonar, chase them down, drive through. We had a day. Cap actually took a picture of it. There's 10 blue marlin boomerangs on the sounder screen at one time.
Wow.
It was
That's insane.
Like,
so now in the Dominican, I know we're getting off on a tangent, but in the Dominican, like, I think that's a place that you could really try to get a feeling of when and why fish feed. Like, are you marking those fish every day or like all, not every day, but all day? And then they just start biting, or are you like they're not here and then they're just magically fucking there?
We had a lot of days where we marked a bunch, like, and this is where the sonar really kind of gets shitty. when you mark 40 fish in a day and you see 4, you know what I mean? You're like, I know they're there. I'm looking at them. You know, it's right there. But I kind of alluded to it earlier where like the fish would flurry. And I don't know if it had to do with the moon set, the minors, the majors. You know, we were sitting there trying to figure it out. But like you get these 2 hour-and-a-half long periods, it seemed like for us, where, you know, you hook one and then all of a sudden the radio starts going. You know, single, you know, 48, 17, whatever. And, you know, you're like, all right, they're starting. You get bit, capitalize on whatever you can capitalize on, but you mark the fish all day long. Like it was cool as hell. We had times where literally Cap made a turn to go around the fad. You know, you'd turn to get on the other side of the fad and he'd be like, all right, boys, I got like 11 on the sonar screen and I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm just going to pick 2 of them and head towards those 2. You know, we marked them, you know, the guys on the reel tight were sitting there fighting a fish and Cap's like, hey, are you guys straight up and down? You stretched out? What's the deal? And he's like, oh no, we're straight up and down. And Cap went by, he marked his fish on the sonar and goes, oh, hey, when you put it back in gear, you got 4 under your bow. Like literally marking them right under his bow, sitting there just doing whatever they're doing. You know, we saw a lot of shit. We tried to figure out, all right, you know, if we mark them at 150, 90 feet, stuff like that, you know, you're going to see them. And then all of a sudden it went to, and I marked out one at 300 and it came up an 8.
Gotcha.
You know, or I marked this one at 90 feet and it didn't eat, you know, and then it was, well, what am I doing? Do I got to put my underwater lights on? Do I got to change something? Do I got to change the color of my underwater light? I don't know. Start playing with a bunch of shit. It's cool though. I mean, I hope you guys go do it.
Yeah, I find it really interesting because like up here in Ocean City, I feel like when you find them, you're going to get bit because it's more about finding them than it is about fucking waiting them out or anything like that. Like, but you know, there's certain instances where we've had a lot of fish around and you're like, they're just not biting, you know? And that kind of is like, that's
the way I look at it. Like if you're in Ocean City or the Bahamas, right? For the most part, you mark a blue marlin at 300-400 feet, you're going to see that fish.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, for the most part. You know, when you mark a big ball off a fad and then you turn around, there's 10 fish there. You're like trying to pull those fish off a buffet to go, you know, you're trying to feed a fish that's looking at filet mignon and you're trying to feed him a hanger steak, you know, and he's got to come work for it. So I don't know. That's how I looked at it. But it seemed like you'd randomly get your flurries, and whether it was moon related or tide related, I don't know. But yeah, usually, you know, we always said, hey boys, if we can pick today, you know, pick at them all day long and then get your 2 flurries, you're going to end up with, you know, a decent day. But I hated those days where you mark 40 of them and see 4. Drove me nuts because you're sitting there and hearing Cap go. You're hearing Cap go, oh, I marked him at 150, marked him at 125. And you're like, all right, where's that fish at? Go all day long sitting there constantly thinking, I'm going to see him. And then you don't, it pisses you off. That's the downfall of the sonar in my thought process. I don't think the downfall of sonar comes when, you know, there's not a lot of fish around. I think it's when there's a lot of fish around that aren't eating.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Well, good stuff. Anthony, anything else we need to add for our topic of prep?
No, just have enough shit, man. Be ready for when you do not want to be the one that fucking doesn't have enough hooks or enough headers or enough baits ready when the day comes, especially up here. I don't know, because it happens so rarely up here that if you miss it out, you might not get another shot at a 30 bite day for another like 6 years, you know? So it's just have enough stuff.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. If you have any questions, email them to podcast@billfish.site, and we'll see you next time.